Hey everyone, I'm going to talk today about how I made my song Solar. If you haven't heard it, check it out. It's on all the platforms and it's super lit, and I just got so excited about it that I wanted to create a video on how I made some of the parts and break it down. So let's get right into it. I think I'm gonna mainly talk about the two different sections, kind of like the melodic breakdown section, which sounds like this, and I'm also going to talk about the drop, which sounds like this. Yeah, I think I'll start off with the melodic part. So the thing that drives this section, in my opinion, is the lead, kind of like a nostalgic, melancholy is what it sounds like by itself. By itself, it actually sounds quite small. I think it's one of the things that sounds bigger when it's with other elements. But the way I made it was I have like 3 different synths, although only two of them are tonal, and then one is kind of more percussive. But the main thing I used here is called this preset called, or this virtual synth called Diva, which I'm starting to use a lot nowadays. And like the main sound of Diva that's being used is this. It's very small. This overall, this virtual synth is great. It sounds super analog and like warm, and it has great effects on it too. Like this is with like the Diva reverb, so I highly recommend it. But yeah, and then I combined it with a Silence preset that kind of sounds like this. So a very similar sound, but just not quite as warm. But it goes well because layering is always good, so I'm all about that. And then the thing that makes it all plucky is just kind of like a percussive part of the sound. By itself it also sounds very small, but all together it makes a nice warm sound, and then in context it works really well. And then for the chords, I layered the chords like a bunch, five layers, and they sound like this. There's one thing you can use here, and it is this thing that the rolling. The reason why they have that rolling effect is because I put an effect on a few of these layers that. It's called arpeggiator, and it's in Ableton, and you can put a note length with it to specify how long you want each note to be, and basically it makes it so you can start, like, the higher in pitch you go with the notes in the chord, the later they start. So here it's like the bottom notes are getting started first, and then the more higher notes are getting started a little bit later, so it creates that rolling effect, which I liked. Yeah, and then, yeah, I mean, besides that, we got the bass, pretty standard stuff there, and I layered different sounds with the shaker, like here and there, that come in like, and then like those little hi-hats, and little effects and whatnot, and then, yeah, that's basically what the breakdown is. And then you have your effect, which is like a bunch of different samples. So yeah, not too impressive, but you know, I just layered like 5 different sounds, like a riser and a tom thing and transition and a little effect, beeps, a laser sound. To move into the build-up. I'm not going to talk about the build-up too much, but I do want to bring up this vocal sound I used. So So that's the build up. The vocal sounds like this. And this is actually two vocal samples combined on a loop. Both of them I found in Splice when I was just like trying to find sounds like that. Yeah, the processing on this is pretty heavy. So by themselves, this is one of them, and then this is the other one. So one is like lower and deeper, the other is like higher and higher and more like wider, and it has more like noise to it. So when you put them together, there's both depth and it has that like wide, big room effect. Yeah, the processing makes a lot of this possible. It's obviously sidechained, that's important. And then I use this thing called Saturn a lot. It's like a fat filter plugin, and you can do a multi-band distortion on it. So I usually distort the highs more than I distort the mids and lows. And it's really easy to do that on there because you can just kind of like split it up. And yeah, here I definitely do that. Like without it, it sounds way lower, but with it, it sounds much more. And yeah, besides that, there's just like Alter Boy, which kind of gives it a different timbre. Like it kind of puts it more in like a chipmunk effect. Or if, in this case it does, because I make it more so. Or you can make it go deeper the other way. Yeah, and then you have your Pro and B to make the highs come out more sideways. So I actually use it in the drop too. So now I'm going to talk about the drop. So the drop obviously sounds like this. And there's not a lot of different elements, but a lot of the elements that are there are super layered. And I'm going to go through like how they're layered. Yeah, I'm a big fan of layering. It's what I do to get that big sound effect, to fill up all the frequencies and all the different, all the spatial. So the lead sounds like this. Just the lead by itself. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like 10 layers of just like silent and diva sounds. Like a few of them I'll play, they sound much thinner than the full thing. So that's another one. That's another one. That's another one. That's another. Yeah, so anyway, there's a bunch of different leads, and they all combine to make one full lead. The key is to have some leads that are like more in the middle, and some like really on the side, and then some that are kind of in between, and then you kind of get that full lead effect by the time you create the full sound. And then for the processing is really important too. Here what's very important is having a kind of like a sidechained or an automated delay. So the delay only comes in. The delay only comes in when the notes have space in between each other. So here, there's space in between because it's like tone, space, tone. But when you have 4 notes here, they go in the row, there's no space in between them, so there's no delay necessary. So I automate all that, and sometimes I sidechain compress it, but in this case I want it to be more exact and like clear. And with sidechain compression you have your attack and release, so it doesn't always work too well. But yeah, I mean, and usually with sidechain compression works really well for just with the reverb. I feel like if it's both delay and reverb, it's like sometimes it doesn't really work. And then for the bass is also very layered. Yeah, so it's important to have a high end on these basses in progressive house music and house music in general. So this is like 121, this is like 7 layers, and some of them sound like very deep and low, like here, That's what's higher, but it's lower. And then this is like higher. This is very high. Yeah, so like I try and throw like a serum bass in there that's all like crazy and has like all these like weird shapes that no one can describe. And then Silent and Diva is like my go-to for sure. So yeah, just go through presets there and just see what you like, and then yeah, you can change it up a little bit, you know, combine them together. But yeah, the processing on the bass is also important. You have actually I would say distortion is the biggest thing, but like the sound basically gets made from the layering. After that, it's like the sound doesn't change too much. Like in the lead, the sound changes more because not only am I doing the automated delay, but I also have like that Saturn plugin which saturates the highs more, and without it, it just sounds like there's not enough highs. I don't know. Like with it, without. Anyways. Yeah, it's that, and then the pad. You got the pad, you know. Gotta have the pad to fill in some space. But yeah, the pad is like, I don't know. I use Diva and Omnisphere and Silent. Omnisphere is the one I use, and that's just like 2 layers of chords or 2 octaves of chords, and you have like 4 instances of like different warm sounds. Yeah, and then you have your effects, and that's just like, you know, noise and impacts, exhausts, whatnot. And also this guitar adds to like the higher end of the. It's kind of in the middle. It just fills up space. Without it, it's just like there's not as much. It doesn't seem like as much is going on. But with it, it's just like a subtle thing kind of in the middle of the frequencies, and there's more going on. These little growls are important too that I add, like some layered growls I found, and then I put them together. And then I have the different accents, like different tom accents. Yeah, just like whatever I could do to accentuate some of the notes, especially the ones that aren't sidechained. You want to try and accentuate those, and then you get like a super exciting melody, and then this like karate yell and whatnot. Yeah, and then the difference between the first part of the drop and the second part is I add like a little bit of top loop, couple layered top percussion sounds. They go together, and then that vocal I put in the build-up comes back too. So the second part, yeah, this thing. So the first half of it is, and the second half is like, you hear that little in there. Yeah, that is basically all it is. This transition does wonders between in the middle of the drop, you know, to go to the other half. Yeah, not much more to say. Oh, this part is also, I mean, all these other parts here are great, but I don't want to keep this video too long. So like this part, I'll talk about, you have this choir sound, and it's a choir and a synth combined basically. I found the choir sound in Omnisphere, and I combined it with a couple synths from also Omnisphere, and yeah, I mean that's kind of like what makes that part, and then this part is like, basically I just decided to make more work for myself and add more stuff. I mean, the lead by itself actually sounds kind of nasally and thin. It sounds much better. Anyways, and then yeah, I don't know. The chords here are pretty huge. You know, you got some layered chords of different octaves. But anyways, yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there because that describes my song, and I hope you guys liked watching this. Yeah, go check out my song. It's great.